Now, there have been several reports that suggest that Ukraine has put up a fight back like no one expected, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has thereby resorted to nuclear saber-rattling, ordering the country's deterrence forces, which command essentially its nuclear assets and missile system, to be in high alert as a counter to the West raising stakes for Moscow by bringing in punitive sanctions.
It's the most deadly escalation in the Russia-Ukraine tensions. Isolated and desperate, Russian president has gone completely nuclear. On Sunday evening, over 80 hours after he invaded Ukraine, Vladimir Putin put his country's nukes on alert.
Нашей страны. Поэтому приказываю министру обороны и начальнику генерального штаба перевести силы сдерживания российской армии в особый режим несения боевого дежурства.
Putin also accused the West of taking unfriendly steps against Russia. Russia, a far superior military force than Ukraine, is frustrated by the resistance put up by the Ukrainian forces. Putin has also been cornered by the West over the invasion.
The statement put out from Moscow talks about Western hostility and Western aggression. Now that seems rather cut off from reality, given the fact that it's the Russian army that went into Ukraine in this completely unprovoked attack. And therefore, to talk about Western aggression, Western hostility, it almost seems to be that President Putin is living in an alternate reality.
No, I think you should be less under the pressure of the propaganda of pro-American mainstream media, who is lying.
With over 6,000 nuclear weapons, Russia has once again put the world on edge. Russia has the ability to launch nukes from land, air and sea. Its intercontinental ballistic missile TOPOL-M can cover a distance of 11,000 kilometers, while the submarine-launched missile Bulava can cover 8,000 kilometers. Putin's nuclear saber-rattling has drawn angry reactions from the United States and NATO. America has accused Putin of manufacturing threats that don't exist to justify the war. Russia is standing in the face of numerous sanctions aimed at crippling its war-waging capability.
NATO troops are amassing even further in the Baltic states. That's right on our border. It's continuing all of the things that Russia has been asking for NATO not to do. They're continuing with that trend. They're continuing setting up bases, sending in more military personnel. And I guess that the message could not be clearer, actually.
Putin had earlier warned foreign countries not to interfere in his invasion of Ukraine, saying it could lead to consequences they have never seen. By putting Russia's nukes to a special mode of combat duty, is Putin posturing or is it a real threat? Bureau Report, India Today.
So one big headline that's emerged with regards to the Russia-Ukraine conflict is Russia announcing that they're keeping their nuclear arms and nuclear alert up now. What does that mean? Russia has over 6,000 nuclear weapons at its disposal, but here's their nuclear deterrent. We break down that for you. First is TOPOL-M, which means white poplar in Russian. It's an intercontinental ballistic missile, the range of which is 11,000 kilometers. Usually in these kind of missiles, the minimum range is about 5,500 kilometers. It's only the United States, Russia and China that have these missiles. Let's tell you also about the Bulava missile. It's a submarine-launched nuclear missile. It has a range of 8,000 kilometers. It's, in fact, a missile that was developed for the Russian Navy and deployed in 2013 on the new Borai class of ballistic missile nuclear submarines. Let's get you also the other big arsenal that Putin has, that Russia has. Kinral, which means dagger in Russian. It's an air-launched nuclear missile with a range of 3,000 kilometers. It's a hypersonic cruise missile. It has a claimed range, as I mentioned there, of more than 2,000, roughly 3,000 kilometers, Mach 10 speed, and even the ability to perform evasive maneuvers at every stage of its flight. So these are, in fact, some of the nuclear missiles, some of the nuclear arsenal with Putin, with Russia, which has now been put on alert, a move that's been condemned by the world as well. And it's because of the nuclear arsenal that Russia has that the world currently is on edge, that Ukraine and the West also have condemned this particular announcement by Vladimir Putin. But let me also tell you about why exactly Putin has taken the step of alerting his entire nuke arsenal and his nuclear team. What has made Putin edgy? We break that down for you. First, he's essentially flexing his destructive muscle at the West, at NATO, as well as the United States, saying that I've still got many tricks and a lot more arsenal up my sleeve. Mind games in the face of increasing West pressure. Increased sanctions have been placed. Military aid has been announced for Ukraine. Amid that, Putin has in fact made this announcement. It's also posturing amid increasing fog of war. And this was expected that, Russia would continue to up the ante with every passing day. Also, what we have to keep in mind is that Russia hoped for a quick and fast invasion. That hasn't happened. There's been an aggressive fight back from Ukraine, and that's perhaps what's prompted this announcement by Putin, because the rapid invasion plan clearly failed. This is saber-rattling to tell Biden and NATO to keep off. Remember, on the very first day when he announced his demilitarization plans, Putin made it very, very clear that anyone interfering will be taught the toughest lesson they ever have in history. And this is another message saying stay away or you'll pay the price. Now, there is a lot of focus right now also on the big development of Ukraine agreeing to talks with Russia. It's a welcoming sign. But the Russian offensive is far from over. Russian missile attacks intensified on Sunday, with Russian forces focusing on destroying Ukraine's oil supplies. There's a battle that's been playing out for two cities, for Kyiv and for Kharkiv. Now, the battle for Kharkiv again ended in disappointment for Russia, with Ukrainians retaking the city after a very fierce battle on the streets. Russians were also not able to make any strides in the capital city of Kyiv. The Ukraine President Zelensky has asked the United Nations to strip Russia of its Security Council vote. Ukraine is also rallying countries to condemn Russia's unprovoked actions on its soil. It submitted an application against Russia to the International Court of Justice to order Russia to cease military activity in the country. The United Nations has called an emergency meet of UNSC to discuss the events in Ukraine.
Go back home. You have nothing to find here. We hope this night will be quiet. We hope the Russians take the decision, move back to Russia. They nothing to find here in our home, but I see so many people. Everybody proud of our army of Ukrainian who defend our city, defend our homes, defend our family, and respect for everyone ready to fight for our country.
Day 5 of the invasion, where do things stand right now? How far has Russia progressed? As I mentioned, Ukraine really putting up a fight back like none anybody expected. But here's how things stand. And just stay with me while we explain right now. What you see on your screens in the yellow here, Crimea, of course, then you've got some parts of western Ukraine here that are all marked in yellow, eastern Ukraine as well, many parts. These are, in fact, Russian-occupied Ukrainian territory. These are the areas where Russia has managed to progress forward, and this is, in fact, parts that Russia has managed to also take over. What you see here, marked right here in this particular part, are the key reported airstrikes as well that have been held. Besides that, key reported ground and naval attacks have been happening in two cities, particularly from where we're also getting you images. One is in the capital city of Kyiv. The other is in Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. Russian troops tried to paint this area yellow. They haven't managed to yet, because Ukraine also has been putting up a fight back in Kharkiv as well as Kiev. So this is where things stand right now. Russia, yes, has managed to progress in many parts. It is not just limited to one region of eastern Ukraine, but it's spread across. But at this point, the fight continues for two cities, for Kharkiv as well as for the capital of Kyiv. Russia would have been hoping that by now their entire map is yellow. That's not happened. Day 5, you're continuing to see a lot of fighting on the streets of Ukraine, particularly in the main cities of Kyiv and Kharkiv. There have been air raids, there have been missile explosions, tanks firing shells. The common Ukrainian right now is gearing up to battle Russian forces. Civilians in Kyiv's territorial defense center are putting up their last stand. You've got youngsters, techies, teenagers, all of them arming themselves for resistance, saying that we will push back Russians as hard as we can.